Well, hello there. Great to see you. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you up here to Weir Yard on what is actually quite a warm day. But that's not what this video is all about. Instead, well, when I was at Key Model World Live, I took the opportunity to see on the Ellis Clark stand that they have got the first of their all-new quad arts coming through for sale. These are the crimson and the maroon versions, the BR examples that were quite a long-lasting set of coaches, with the L&E Artiques, I'm told, coming through at the end of this month. Now, Ellis Clark was really kind and loaned the channel a full set of these for us to be able to take a good close look at. So they do come in a really nice substantial box, and we're going to be taking a good close look at these. But articulation, it's something that started to make a bit of a comeback, and the reasons for articulation in railway vehicles is twofold. Now, the first of these is weight. A bogie on a coach weighs quite a lot. Arguably, it's probably the most dense of the mass of a coach in a train, and the average coach needs two of these. But if you articulate with the coach next to it, you only need three bogies for two coaches. And if you extend this idea to more and more coaches, then actually you start to not need a substantial number of bogies. In this case, the quad arts, it's four coaches, and between them they only need five bogies instead of eight. So that's three bogies that these sets just did not need to have. And that means that they were able to carry a lot more passengers. They weren't as taxing on the locomotives, didn't need as much fuel and water to be able to move them about because inherently they weighed less. But the other reason that articulation was really quite handy is it shortens the length of the train. And this is really important for things like these intensive commuter services into the heart of London, which are restricted by the length of the platforms available. Now, on the Southern, Bullied experimented with the 4DD, a double-deck train, to try and increase the capacity of the train to be able to get more people through. But on the Great Northern Railway, they went a different route with this articulation, and it shortened the length of the train and allowed an amazing 600 passengers in a 450-foot length, albeit they were all very cosy like sardines with knees and elbows interlocked. But that meant that you could still get your commute into town and not be left waiting on the platform for the next train. And so were born these multiple units, effectively, that would semi-permanently be coupled together. Now, of course, it does have a few disadvantages, and if you have a problem with one of the coaches in that four-coach articulated set, the whole thing needs to be withdrawn from service to be able to fix that fault. But I guess these were seen as problems that could be overcome. Now, when Ellis Clark announced this at Alexandra Palace, actually, a couple of years ago, it really did come as quite a surprise. And this was their first 00 gauge announcement, and certainly it's appeared to have been a leapfrog by the Lomac, but I suspect they've been working on that for a very long time. And that Lomac has been very impressive. In fact, the whole of the Ellis Clark range has been very impressive. And I think that Ellis's philosophy has very much been, we will make it perfect. There will be no compromise. And we've seen as a result of this models such as the Black 5 in O gauge, the Press Flows in O gauge, the Wickham rail trolleys in O gauge, and then those Lomacs as well. And we're looking forward for things like the War Department 210O, which I'm told is not that far away. And we've also had announced those demountable tank wagons too. So it's an exciting time for a brand where the entire aim is to make the best possible model that they can of a prototype, and they do tend to be a little bit more expensive, but quality costs. You wouldn't expect to be buying yourself a Bentley for the same price as a Ford Fiesta. It just isn't going to happen. They might both have four wheels, a steering wheel, some seats, doors, and even a roof over your head, but it's a very different experience. And that's what Ellis Clark has come to the table to bring the model railway world. And with a big thanks to Ellis for lending us this set, let's see whether this has lived up to the expectations of those previous models that have gone before. But before we get into the video, don't forget to hit that like button and also consider sharing this video to social media. And of course, as always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do please hit that subscription notification bell, all the works, and it just makes sure that you get served up the future videos in the algorithm, and you can also explore that huge back catalogue of over 1,800 videos that we've done here on this channel. We've also got a link down below to our merch store and the Monday Club badges, the Monday Club wagons, and over to Patreon as well if you want to help support the channel. But let's get on without further ado and see, has Ellis delivered another belter? Today's video is sponsored by Tramfabriek, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. We're proud to be supported by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for new and used. Pre-order all forthcoming models with confidence, or check out the extensive listings of second-hand. Each model is checked by experts in the field to make sure you're getting the very best. With new models uploaded daily, there's always something new to find. You can also specify from their value weathering and renumbering service right through to bespoke graffiti to get exactly the model that you want. Get something special today by browsing at themodelcentre.com. The latest release from Clark Railworks, which just arrived in time for Key Model World, so those of you who were there at the show will have seen them for sale on the Clark Railworks stand, are something that I've been waiting for with a great deal of excitement ever since they were announced at Alexandra Palace some time ago. Now, we've seen the pre-production models, we've actually been and visited Ellis Clark up in Skipton a few times, and we've seen this project come along really well. Now, these coaches were really quite long-lived over a span of in excess of 40 years for some sets of these, and the articulated coaches were an innovation which saved not just weight but also length of the train. And on the commuter routes into places like London Moorgate, London King's Cross, that was really important, particularly for the Moorgate trains, because the platforms were quite short, so it meant that you could get a greater density of commuters for getting into those inner city areas for going to work and coming home in the evenings. With the rise of suburbia in the 1920s, despite the economic downturn, it meant a lot more commuters using these routes. Now, Gresley had first experimented with articulation when he worked at the Great Northern Railway in around 1907, taking some down-at-heel elderly coaches of the 6-wheel and 8-wheel bogie variety and utilising this shared bogie to be able to create weight savings and also length savings on the train. And it's this design which worked really well for the Great Northern Railway, and when they came to replace their rather elderly and decrepit coaches, then on the commuter routes at least, they turned to this articulated design. And whilst these coaches were ordered in 1922, they weren't delivered until the very start of the LNER period. And these became quite a common sight working into the capital, and they were no means considered spacious. Certainly to get, I think it was around 600 passengers within the space of 450 feet, you kind of had to interlock people, and that meant that people's knees and elbows had to interlock into the compartments, which even by a small stretch of the imagination were very snug. Now, these actually had first, second and third class accommodation. They were some of the final coaching stock that included all three until they were declassified and became all thirds. Continuing their success, even as the Mark I Suburbans were brought in to replace a lot of the more elderly coaching stock, the Quad Arts actually continued for quite some time, being used as emergency replacements for suburban sets which were out of traffic for whatever reason, and certainly at peak times they still found a lot of use. The final hurrah came after withdrawal of the entire fleet in 1966. 3 sets, I think it were sent north to the Sheffield area, where they were used on excursions out to Lincolnshire, places like Skegness, over that summer. And it was a final hurrah for these sets. And through a fortuitous quirk of fate, half of one of the 8 coach sets ended up at a scrapyard in Norfolk, which was not far from the then just starting out North Norfolk Railway, and they were purchased for coaching stock for that line and have managed to survive, albeit from 1979 to comparatively recently out of service needing work. They've recently been restored, and that one set of 4 is now running again. Interesting enough, they're referred to as Quad Arts, but they always ran in service on British Railways and also the LNER before that as 8 coach sets, and that meant 2 lots of 4 were semi-permanently coupled together using a rigid coupling bar. And Ellis Clark trains have made it quite easy to make up these 8 coach sets. You don't have to buy 8 coaches. There is an acknowledgement that not every layout is able to accommodate full 8 coach sets, and also from the price tag point of view, so you can buy just 4 coach set, maybe go back later on and get the companion set to go with it. There are 3 different livery options that are being made available, with the BR Crimson and the BR Maroon being available now, and the Gresley Teaks, suitable for the LNER period, will be forthcoming, I am told, at the end of this month. They're following in production, so if you ordered the LNER versions, that's a rough estimate that I got from Ellis at the show as to how long they're going to be before they arrive. It's like we've often said before, there's a lot of thought and effort goes into the packaging for these. So I'm just going to show you this again. Inside we've got the cutouts in the foam for each of the coaches. And what I actually discovered is, because we've got too long and too short, then it's impossible to end up getting them the wrong way round in the box. We do also have some extra detail parts, and these are brake stretchers and such like. The coaches have been designed to be really easy to convert to EM and P4, and that's where these will be required. We've also got the solid coupling bars for if you've got 2 sets of 4 semi-permanently coupled together, and I believe there's also a magnetic wand, and then we've got the destination labels. You can see here a whole range of different destination labels, and these would go on the brake end of the coach and illuminated from behind. The magnetic wand is required on both DC and DCC for turning the lights on and off. Out of the box, the lights are set to be on permanently. If you turn them off whilst you're actually using them on the layout and turn the layout power off, they will remain off until switched at a later date. There's also a very substantial user information and history, and this has got the full lifespan of the Quad Art coaches throughout here. It gives a really quite extensive detail of their history, but also some of the artwork which would appear in these coaches on the mahogany panelled partitions. And these were actually recreated by the staff at Clark Railworks to be able to actually do the coach interiors properly, and you can see them here enlarged. I believe they are available through Clark Railworks as a print, and these were done specially to the style of the originals, and it really is quite impressive. 7mm wide in the coach, that's how big they actually appear in there. And you can actually see the detail when I've had these on the layout. Really is quite impressive. We've also got the full list of the different versions available, and it shows you which version, which catalogue number you need to go for which part of the full 8 coach sets. Now, this particular version that Ellis Clark has very kindly loaned for review, we've got C 2002A Quad Art set number 84A, and this is in BR Crimson, suitable for Era 4. Now, when you get these out, what is very apparent is that there is not really any commonality between the different parts of the quad art. Essentially, what Ellis Clark has had to make is multiple coaches for these sets. So we've got the innermost coaches, we've got a long one and a short one. You can see the length differences here. The bogies are the same. These are the heavyweight Gresley bogies, which these coaches had from new. Some of the earlier quad arts from the Great Northern Railway, those actually gained these later in life. And it is interesting, they are referred to in the manual. And I am wondering whether Ellis Clark is working on some of the other articulated sets, which would be absolutely fabulous. Now, each of these coaches has at least one bogie permanently attached, and you can see these are spring-loaded, and this allows the coaches to get around some really quite tight curves. I think radius 2 is mentioned as a minimum, but I have actually on Weir Yard managed to get these to go round radius 1 with no real issues whatsoever. Certainly they took everything in their stride. Now, we've also got pickups on each of these bogies. You can see there we've got spring-loaded wiper contacts on the backs of the wheels, and these are then soldered through into the coach that comes permanently attached to the bogie, and that powers up the lights. Now, the lights themselves will work on any voltage between, I think it's 3.3 and 24 volts, so suits a variety of different systems. And I'm just going to get a 9-volt battery and power those up. And it also includes a stay alive setup, which works equally well on both DC and DCC. Ellis Clark reckons that's good for about 45 minutes off the juice. So I've just powered that up. That may not even be a full charge, but you can see there that those interior lights just keep on glowing. And I've checked on my DCC Concepts Alpha ammeter for the layout, and there's not really an excessive draw on this, so it's not going to run the risk of tripping out your system. Now, in terms of detail, let's start on the underframe, and you can see we've got these spring-loaded pins for attaching each of the coaches together. And that is really quite nice, positive feeling on that spring, nothing binds. And then we've got this, it looks to be a die-cast chassis for the low-down weight. And then we've got all of this fine detail and footboards. We've also got the stretchers here across the underside of these wagons. Now, there's a different height on those two. I'm just going to look and see whether that is replicated across any of the others. I'm not entirely sure. That looks to, certainly it's been glued, but it looks a bit high. It's not really a major issue if that's in the wrong place, and I wouldn't be too bothered by that. We've got the vacuum braking in place. You can see the cylinder here with all of the rigging in place. Now, we have those extra brake stretcher bars in the package. I showed you those before. They are for P4EM conversion. If you're sticking with 00, you really don't have to be too bothered. And then I really do love not just the colour, but the actual dished fronts on these wheels. These are perfectly replicating the Gresley wheels with what is actually quite a complex shape in there. The bogies too, we've got a lot of fine detail. This looks to be a lot of metal construction. Again, getting that weight low down. It really is an incredible effort here from the Ellis Clark team. Looking further back along the coach here on the wooden panelling. Now, my view is what will really stand out is the teak versions of these coaches, but certainly The crimson and maroon versions do look really quite fine. You can see here the actual paint finish on this is crisp and sharp. We've got a slight satin effect with the paint, and it does seem to be the perfect paint match. When it comes to the door handles, these all look to be separately fitted. It's not clear whether they're metal or plastic. Definitely they do look the part. I'm going to say they're probably metal. There is a bit of spring to them. And then we've got that really quite crisp printing of the E86305E on this coach. And then looking further up, flush glazing. There is a small amount of a prismatic effect at the edges, but really it is quite slight. It's much less than we've seen on a number of other products from different manufacturers. We've got the printing on the no smoking compartment lozenges. That's on the inside of the glass. And then the coach ends. These were very quickly painted black because they couldn't be reached in service by the coach cleaners. And I guess if you can't clean it, hide it was the mantra of the day. We've got the same there on the other end. The roofs, we've got the line of torpedo vents matching up with the internal partitions, and then the rain strips across the sides. This is quite a complex. We've got the ellipse of the roof, quite slight on top, and then accelerating to the edges. Now, to get into these, if you want to fit passengers, then there are just some clips at either end. A fingernail is enough just to unclip the roof. And I can see inside here we've got that lighting board, really quite unobtrusive across the top, and I like the way that the stay alive capacitors have been fitted above the luggage racks. The luggage racks themselves, these are metal, they're mesh, really nicely done. And you can see some of those pictures on the partitions. Now you might think this is detail for detail's sake, but the honest truth is you can see them through the windows, and when I had these running on Weir Yard, they were all perfectly visible, and really was quite impressed by that. The seats too are finished in rather a plain kind of maroon upholstery effect, and they're not just flat, they look to have a bit of a curve at the end, and then we've got this black floor as well, and I can only imagine that these would look absolutely exquisite with a full house of commuters all sat down in there, and the lights will ensure they will be more than visible. Now I'm going to turn next to the shorter of the ends of the coach. So you can see here we've got the actual coach set number, and this would have been carried by both of the 4 coach sets. And you can see there it's quite crisply printed. We have other detail on there. I do love all of this. There's so much going on. We've also got the windows on the end, and then we've got these sprung buffers, which are quite an interesting shape, and I can feel that they're the perfect amount of spring. They've got that resistance, but not so much that they wouldn't actually be of any use if you try to use them for their appropriate means. We've also got a cam action close coupling set here with slimline tension locks fitted, but that rigid bar will fit across as well. They also give you some plugs to put in here. If you take out the close coupling mechanism, you can plug the cutaway in the bogie, and certainly that is something which may prove to be useful for some modelers. Again, we've got these full Gresley bogies. The ones at the end have these step boards. I do have a loose step board just on there. Again, no big deal. The amount of detail on these is almost overwhelming. This particular coach is the one which comes factory fitted with 2 sets of bogies, so it's the one that carries the extra bogie, so to speak. Underframe detail on this also includes the dynamo, which would have been connected by a belt to provide the electrical power for the lighting. We've also got a vacuum cylinder there. Now we do appear to be missing some of the linkage across. You can see it's present at the other end. It's a little bit minor. I'm just pointing it out because you may have spotted it on your screens. And I should also say that we've got brass bearings. You can just see them down in there, that each of these wheels rolls in, and they are fairly free rolling, but we do have the wiper pickups on the backs of the wheels, which do slow them down just a little bit. Again, the interior of these coaches is really easy to gain access to. You can see the brake compartment in there. We've also got some seats for the guard to sit by these rear windows to be able to look out and see what was going on. With the side-mounted seats either side, the brake wheel in the middle. This is a fully lit compartment. Then moving further into the coach, you can see again, we've got all those pictures and that upholstery, the luggage racks as well, really quite exquisite in there. On the side of the coach, we've also got these tiny little destination board blinds. These are lit up and they are separately switched. So if you want to get in there and put in the destination boards, just cut them out from the sheet provided. And with the roof off, we can gain access inside there just by carefully peeling out of the way some of the trim on there. It is a loaner. I'm not going to mess around too much because I think the person who buys this might just be a little bit displeased. And again, we've got some really quite exquisite separately applied fittings picked out in this brass colour down the side. Next up is the inner coach of the longer variety. Again, you can see there we've got that really quite nice underframe. Bogies we've already covered, and same finish on the side that we saw on the other coaches. And again, I'm not going to take the roof off on this. It really is quite an exquisite coach. There's some decent weight going on here as well. It really does feel like a through and through quality product. The final coach as well in the set, you can see here, we've got again the 84 for the set number. This would have been on the interior of the 8-coach set, and the buffers are replaceable with a retracted version. So when you've got the two 4-coach sets coupled together with the solid bar, then these would be in the retracted position, and there are spares provided to be able to take these out and fit them in the retracted position to get the appropriate clearance. Looking on the end there, we have quite a lot of separately fitted detail. You can see some of this pipe work, and also got a lamp iron on there. It's quite interesting to know. I don't know whether that's a preservation era feature with the 4-coach set running without the second 4-coach set, so needing a lamp iron on the end, or whether they all had that even when that was on the interior of the 4-coach set. Again, we've got this excellent finish. There's not very many no smoking compartments, it must be said. I think most people were smokers back then, so if you were a non-smoker, it was a bit of a fight to get that non-smoking compartment at the end. Again, we've got the close coupling cam mechanism for the slimline tension lock at the end, which can of course be replaced with that bar coupling. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
Things that I really like about this set is when it comes to actually assembling it, it really is super easy. We've seen lots of different methods employed from different companies, and actually I think the Ellis Clark version is really simplicity itself. So we've got that spring-loaded pin at one end of the coach, and you'll find that there's a little circular recess on the top of the appropriate bogie, and that just drops in, and then perfect, you're away to go. When you're finished taking the coaches off, there's nothing clipped in place, there's no electrical connections. It really is super easy, and you can see that there's quite a degree of stretch. This is spring loaded, so it pulls itself back in, and this allows it to get around some of the really tight corners on your layout without any kind of issues with locking buffers. Each coach has at least one bogie, which does mean that every single set of lights has pickups to be able to turn those lights on internally. On the layout, I had these running around with an appropriate N7 locomotive. It's one of several ready-to-run locomotives that are available on the market that are more than suitable to run with these coaches over their 40-odd years history. N1s, N2s and N7s were all recorded as having run with these, with the N7 available readily through Oxford Rail and the N2, albeit an older tooling, available through Hornby. Some of the K-class moguls have also been recorded running with these, as well as B17s, and these are both available from Hornby, and versions of the K-class moguls also available from Bachmann. Later on, into the dieselisation era, these could be seen with Baby Deltics Class 23s available from Hellion, Class 20s available from Bachmann, and also Class 31s available from Accurascale and Bachmann. So really, there is a huge wealth of different motive power to suit all periods of these coaches. I managed to get them to go around the torture test track with the greatest of ease. It doesn't say they're recommended for radius 1 curves, but they really do get round them. They do have a little bit of a weight to them, and what I found behind a Class 20 locomotive, it really didn't have the grip on its own to be able to pull this 4-coach set around the tight curves, which are also on a 5% gradient, and that is quite steep in railway terms, so I'm not really going to hold it against them. I was actually just really quite impressed that they got round the radius 1 curves. On the main line, they just glide along and they stick to the track like glue, getting through all of the point work with no issues whatsoever. And that mechanism between the coaches to be able to very easily put them on the track and put them away again is simplicity itself. I have to say that was one of the amazing highlights of this set for me, making them an absolute doddle to make up on the track. Now, you aren't able to put them in the box in the wrong order. There's only one way you can put them in there, and what I found was if you just take them out from top to bottom in the box and then put them together accordingly, then you won't have any issues with getting them in the right order. So when we come to scores, first up is build quality, and actually these are incredibly well put together. They've withstood my handling with nothing raining off the coaches, and despite the fact that there's so many fine separately applied detail parts, I really haven't had too many issues other than the footboards on the brake end of the coach are very, very lightly put on. A little patch of glue will sort that out, but unfortunately that does mean that we take a percentage point off and these get a 9.9. Next up is running quality, and these coaches performed really well. They're super silky smooth through all of the main line here on Weir Yard, and when I really pushed them to the limit on the torture test track, they actually performed better than promised. And it's not often that items of rolling stock coming through are able to take in this torture test track. Certainly, usually coaches are completely barred from this route because they just won't get round the really tight curves and the limited clearance. But with the camming on the bogies and the low down weight on these, they really did stick to the track well. And the only thing that really thwarted them was on the quite steep grades, which are on a tight curve. The single class 20 locomotive just started to lose traction. And really that's not a problem. These really did over and above perform on the layout, and I'm going to give them a full 10 out of 10. On DCC fitting and innovation, well, DCC fitting just isn't applicable on these, but innovation, it's got that in the absolute bucket loads. The ability to get in and out of these coaches with just a single fingernail is absolutely perfect. You can see we can get in. We've got the Stay Alive that works not just on DCC but DC as well, and that's a little bit of a holy grail. Certainly it means that DC modelers don't miss out on this function. You don't need a decoder to control all of this. It comes with a magnetic wand for turning each coach on and off separately, and the internal detail is certainly the very best I've ever seen. With those miniaturized pictures, this is taking the decoration of a model to an all new level, and this is something I know that Ellis Clark and his team are very proud of, and rightly so. It's absolutely exquisite, the detail that's going on in here, and really I've got nothing much to fault. I also really like the pickups on the bogies, which allow for this really quite effective coach lighting, and the method by which each of the coaches is put together in the set is so simple and yet effective. It makes you wonder why other manufacturers have come up with some very complex ways of doing it, when quite frankly this is all you need. It works well, and when you come to put them back in the box at the end of running, you're not left with a string of sausages trying desperately to separate them and avoid causing damage. So I'm going to give it the full 10 out of 10. On accuracy and quality of finish, well, again, the finish on these is absolutely perfect, even down to the printing of those pictures inside each of these coaches. It really is so well done. They don't look fuzzy, they don't look wrong in any way. We've got the lozenges on the windows, we've even got some really quite fine printing down on the sole bars of some of these coaches. Everything is just perfect, and I think that's something we've said before when we reviewed the O-gauge press flows. When it comes to Clark Railworks, they are just perfect. I couldn't really find too much to fault. The only things that I would highlight would be just a couple of missing parts on the brake rigging. It did come out of the box with just some of the vacuum braking rigging just completely missing. I did check the box, it doesn't appear to be there, and it's such a minor little gripe that I'm only going to knock a small amount off for that, so I'm going to give it the 9.9. When it comes to value for money, this is an area where definitely Clark Railworks have a mission whereby it's top quality and price is secondary to that. Essentially, it's going to be the best a model can be. And they've taken a view that the market is something that will reward this level of quality. And I don't think that they're wrong in this aspect. Essentially, nobody will ever make a quad arc coach again because Ellis Clark has made the definitive one, and that's something that I really like about these. We've got slightly different tooling between different versions. The top lights on these doors were in early days actually fitted with glass. These are later boarded over by British Railways, and that is accurately reflected on these models. So there's a lot of separate tooling on these. Each part of the coach is uniquely different, and that means you're paying £325 for 4 very unique, very bespoke coaches that are pretty much perfect. And I know there are some people who might balk at the price, but this is what perfection costs, and people are prepared to pay that. Certainly looking at these, £325 is what we can find it available both direct from Ellis Clark, but also through, we've got an affiliate link down below for all versions from TMC, the Model Centre. And I think it is still quite a reasonable price in this day and age. We've already seen some of the bespoke one-off style coaches going for over the £100 mark for some of these really quite fancy dynamometer type cars. And I think that when you factor that together, this is still a pretty reasonable price to pay for a 4-coach set of this quality. And I'm going to give it a 9.0, and that gives us an overall score of 48.8. It really is a superb set, and certainly one which I don't think we would have seen ready to run if Ellis Clark hadn't have tackled this, and I really am quite intrigued to see what coaching stock they come up with next. We've already had the announcement of the next new wagon, and it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. And I'm sure that there are other projects, other exciting projects that Ellis has in the pipeline, which will be announced in due course. But my recommendation for these quad arts is you will not be disappointed with the set of these on your layout. Well, I really enjoyed that video looking at the quad arts from Ellis Clark. And what I found is certainly at the start, Ellis Clark focused on the O gauge end of the market, where you'd probably be more expectant of detail without compromise. But Ellis has actually taken that philosophy and shrunk it down to double O gauge. And actually what is shown is that you can have the quality that you'd expect in O gauge and have it in double O. And it's not simply a case of detail for the sake of detail. What I really like about these is the ingenuity. And we've got those fully detailed interiors with those exquisite pictures on the bulkheads between the compartments, and they are just replicated perfectly. It's what you might expect in an O gauge model, but here it is in double O. But there's also a lot of innovation. It's not about making things unnecessarily complicated. I love the lighting system with the Stay Alive that works on both DC and DCC. It just works is probably the watchwords which you could apply to a lot of the innovations from Ellis Clark. We've got the magnetic wand that turns the lights on and off just by waving them over the appropriate part of the roofs. And the full details of that is in the manual that comes with these, and it's very effective indeed. It means we don't have to mess about fitting decoders to this set. It just doesn't need them to control the lights. And for me, probably the biggest highlight is the mechanism whereby each coach hooks onto that shared bogie. It's so simple, but it's massively effective. And I think that's something that a lot of other manufacturers really could take note of. You don't need a complicated system. You don't need plugs that need to be very carefully taken apart and pushed together. And nobody really wants to end up pulling what amounts to a big string of sausages off the track when trying to get these things on and off the layout. They're so simple to get in and out of the box, and the box design itself is designed to protect the models, but also be easy to get them in and out. It's simplicity itself, and I thought that this is a great effort from Ellis Clark, and it's definitely raised the bar. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about these. Do leave a comment down below. It's always great to hear from you. And I know a lot of you guys have been ordering away at these. I know, talking to Alice, the teak versions, which are due at the end of the month, are very nearly sold out. And actually the crimson and the maroon versions as well have very strong sales too. We've got an affiliate link down below, which takes you to TMC, the model centre, where you can find all the different versions of these coaches available to buy at £325 for a 4-coach set. Anyway, you guys take great care of yourself. Please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
We're proud to be supported by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for new and used. Pre-order all forthcoming models with confidence, or check out the extensive listings of second-hand. Each model is checked by experts in the field to make sure you're getting the very best. With new models uploaded daily, there's always something new to find. You can also specify from their value weathering and renumbering service right through to bespoke graffiti to get exactly the model that you want. Get something special today by browsing at themodelcentre.com. I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.